Welcome back to the Tech Space. This is tutorial 3 on Java and processing, and we're going to be going over the setup function. So for our first program, we're going to write something in our setup function. So as you remember from the last tutorial, we went over what these two things were. Well, not what they were, but how to put them on here. And now we're going to go over what you put inside of them. So for your setup, basically, how to explain this in the simplest terms is that everything in here is static, meaning that you can, everything in here is unchangeable. Once you put it in here, it stays that way, and that's the way it is. So just remember that for right now. And in Draw, we'll go over this in the next tutorial, but for now, just remember everything in here changes every time the code ends. So it changes from top to bottom. So it changes from top to bottom. And what I'm doing right now is these two forward slashes create comments. So if you didn't know, to create comments in code, you add two forward slashes. In some programming languages, it's like this. Well, actually, in this programming language, Java, it is too. This is a multi-line comment, so you can add text in between here, and none of this text affects the program. So just remember that, because in other programming languages, again, that is something that is implemented in that same sort of way, and in others, a similar way, but the syntax for it might be a little bit different. And syntax just means how the code is written. So besides all of that, remember the setup is static code, and the draw function is the code that changes as it goes from top to bottom, and then once it reaches the bottom, something I should mention. So once it reaches the bottom, it restarts. So obviously at the top, but just it restarts at the top just for more of a visual representation. So once your code runs through draw, it restarts at the top. So in setup, what we're gonna want to have is a size. So the size, what size does is it indicates the size of the window that you want to have. So we're going to ahead and add this real quick. And what we see is a declaration called size and parentheses. And inside these parentheses, I put two numbers. Now this is the width and this is the height, I believe. So let me check that. I don't want to be wrong on that. Okay, so run this. Okay, so yeah, I was right. I was making sure. So size is the first thing is the width, and the second thing is the height. So I usually use 600, 600, and I had to check that because, again, I program in other languages, and other languages they do it differently. So size, width, and height, and that basically just means, create a window, and as you see, when I click the run, it created that window for us. So 600 by 600, and it creates the window. So you have this blank window, it's gray, it has nothing on it, and we're going to do one more thing. So you can go ahead and close out of that. And in this setup function, we're going to add a background. So the background could be a picture, something like that, which we'll get into later. For now, we're just going to change it to a color. Now, colors are something that in all programming languages are really, I guess, something that you really have to get used to and remember. So what we're going to do is just say white. Instead of that gray color, we want white. And white is number FFFFFF. So there's 6 values. And this is called a hex color, or hex value. So with this this type of syntax, what we're saying is, create this hex color, and this is the color wheel definition of the color white. So when I go ahead and run this program again, I'll get a background and it's white. Now, you can look these up just on Google, just Google hex color values, or you can also do RGB. So what RGB is red, green, and blue, which are the colors that your computer puts off that form all of the colors. So red, green, and blue form all colors, which means if I use some value of red, some value of green, and some value of blue, I can get any color on the color wheel. So I'm going to say, let's just say we want red. So we want 255 red, 0 green, and 0 blue. And that will be a red background. And if you don't want to press the play button every time, or the run button, sorry, just click or press Control and run, and that will run the program for you. So this is red, so that means this must be, if I set it to 255 and set this to 0, that must mean this is green. So when we run that, we get green, and just to make sure, or show you for an example, we get blue when we do this. And again, you can give these values, you can give it whatever value you want and run it. It has to be from 0 to 225 or 255, sorry. But that's how you do red, green, and blue values. Something I wouldn't really get used to doing. I'd get used to the hex values just because they're a little bit easier to remember. Like reg, just 00FF 00. And you always have to use this number sign. I guess that wasn't red. I think red is FF 00FF, or I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so just look up the hex color values, and again, the background's really something that's really not important. The thing that I'm trying to get across to you is that colors are important, and that understanding how to use colors is really important in programming, because of course you're going to want to have colors in your program, so getting used to being able to just, remember those values and have them at hand is something that you're really going to want to take into account. And the more and more you program, of course, it'll be something that's easier and easier as you go along. So that's how you create a background in size in the function or in the function called setup. And again, these are the static items that do not change throughout your program. And in the next tutorial, we're going to be going over the function draw. So stay tuned. We have some cool stuff to go over. Again, if you guys have any questions, post them in the comment section below, and I will try to answer your question for you the best that I can. And if I can't, I'll reference you to a place where you can figure out where the answer to your solution is. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.